Hey guys, how's it going? Master Cal here, and today I'm going to be doing the 23rd video for my 2021 NFL offseason preview series for the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks started off pretty great as their offense was cooking. Their defense, however, lagged behind that offense. But the switch was kind of flipped in the second half of the season. The defense improved thanks to a mid-season trade pickup of Dunlap, while the offense seemed to slow and get more predictable. And Seattle wound up getting eliminated by their division rival Rams in the wild card round. And since then, there has been a bit of turmoil as they moved on from their offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer. Russell Wilson has voiced publicly displeasure about various parts of the organization and wants a larger say on specifically offensive personnel. And there's been reports that Wilson could wind up requesting a trade out of Seattle sooner or later, which obviously that would be a huge blow for Seattle's chances to contend. So we'll follow that over this offseason. So the projected starters, obviously Wilson at quarterback, who has still managed to stay healthy, but he is entering his age 33 season, and at some point or another, his skill set where he runs around a lot is not going to age well, especially if he has to continuously run behind a leaky offensive line. At running back is Rashad Penny, the Seahawks' first rounder in 2018 from SDSU. Penny, however, has underwhelmed in the NFL. He's also missed a lot of time due to injuries. He didn't play much all of last year because he was recovering from an injury that he suffered right at the end of the 2019 regular season. I expect Seattle to decline his fifth-year option, and I expect them to also add another running back. At left tackle is Dwayne Brown, former first-rounder of the Houston Texans in 2008, who was traded to Seattle in 2017. He's currently set to enter the final year of his contract. He's still playing pretty good, but obviously he's been around the league for a long time now. This will be his 14th season, so I would not be surprised to see Seattle look for a long-term replacement for him down the line. At left guard is Phil Haynes, a fourth-rounder in 2019 by Seattle. He hasn't played much at all, though. They don't have a center under contract. Right guard is Damian Lewis, third rounder in 2020 from LSU. Lewis had a pretty solid rookie season, and he should be a building block on that line. And then right tackle is Brandon Shell, former New York Jet, joined the Seahawks on a 2-year deal last season as a free agent, and he did fairly well. Wide receiver, you got Tyler Lockett, who went from being a special teamer to being a guy that Wilson has a lot of chemistry with. It seems like almost every other game, Wilson and Lockett connect for some kind of circus catch or just some really big play. Next to him is DK Metcalf, second rounder in 2019 from Ole Miss, and Metcalf had an excellent season last year. I think he had one of the best receiving seasons by a Seahawks wide receiver ever, which is impressive. Their number 3 wide receiver for now is Freddie Swain, a sixth rounder in 2020 who played, I think, about a third of their snaps. He had a decent season. In tight end is Will Dissley, fourth rounder in 2018. Dissley suffered major injuries in his first 2 years in the league. He managed to stay healthy last year while splitting the tight end 1 duties with Greg Olsen. We will see if Seattle pursues an upgrade to the tight end position or if they'll let Dissley be the guy entering his contract year. On defense, you've got Carlos Dunlap off the edge. He obviously they picked him up midseason from the Bengals, and he provided a boost to Seattle's pass rush. Now, this is just in today. Adam Schefter reports that the Seahawks are going to be cutting Dunlop, and that will save a little bit more than $14 million in cap space. So it was kind of more of a thing where they would have liked to keep him, but they just don't have a lot of cap to work with, and they have a lot of other needs to address. A lot of reports have said, though, that the Seahawks could wind up bringing back Dunlop at a cheaper price, so we'll see what happens after he tests the market. At the defensive tackle spot is Jaron Reed, second rounder in 2016, I believe, from Alabama. Reed has shown promise, but he's also dealt with suspensions and also some underwhelming play in there as well. And he's in the second year of a 2-year deal that he re-signed with Seattle last offseason. And he's the only defensive tackle they had under contract at the end of the season. Off the other edge is L.J. Collier, the Seahawks' first rounder in 2019. Collier actually did pretty good in 2020 after a quiet rookie season, so we'll see if he can break out in year 3. Linebacker, you got Bobby Wagner, who was taken in the same draft class as Wilson. Obviously, those two have been cornerstone players the past decade for the Seahawks, and Wagner still remains one of the better linebackers in the NFL. Jordan Brooks, first rounder last year from Texas Tech, who saw some action as the number 3 linebacker, and then their next linebacker is Cody Barton. I think he was a 4th rounder in 2019. He's mostly been a special teamer, but he did see defensive action as a rookie, not as much this past year. Cornerback is Trey Flowers, 5th rounder in 2018. Flowers has been up and down. He hasn't been very consistent as a starter, and he was in and out of the lineup last year because of injuries to the Seahawks starters. He's played inside and outside. Their number 2 corner by cap hit is Ugo Chukwuemeka Amadi, who saw quite a bit of action last year because of the injuries in the secondary, and he showed a bit of promise. And within the slot is Marquis Blair, who barely played last year due to injuries. Blair was going to be the starting nickelback last year as he was displaced from the safety position, but he only played in 2 games. And the person who displaced him from that safety position is Jamal Adams, who was traded in a blockbuster deal from the Jets to the Seahawks. The Seahawks gave up multiple firsts, among other things, to acquire Adams, who had a productive season for Seattle, but he also did miss 4 games due to injury. And he's set to enter the 5th-year option of his rookie contract. And then the other safety is Quandre Diggs, who the Seahawks picked up in a trade in 2019 from the Detroit Lions. He's also in the final year of his contract and still playing pretty well. On special teams, Tyler Ott is the long snapper. Michael Dixon is the punter. Dixon actually has triggered the highest level of the proven performance escalator, so he actually has a fairly high cap hit relative to his position. Like, it's somewhere around $3.5 million. And that's because he was a first-team All-Pro in one of his seasons. So on the one hand, it's like he's an excellent punter. On the other hand, in a lower cap year, he has a fairly high cap hit. And then at kicker is Jason Myers. And Myers was one of the best kickers in the league last season after a bit of an uneven first year in Seattle. So they're free agents. You got Greg Olsen, who has decided to call it a career. Linebacker KJ Wright, who had a nice bounce back year with Seattle, but wants to cash in and won't take a hometown discount. Defensive end Bruce Irvin, who missed a lot of the season with an ACL tear. Cornerback Quinton Dunbar, the trade for him wound up being a bust, as Dunbar, obviously he had that armed robbery off-field incident in the spring, and then he just wasn't very effective when he was on the field and was banged up with injuries. Tight end Jacob Hollister, defensive end Benson Mayoa, running back Carlos Hyde, guard Mike Iupati, he is also retired, swing tackle Cedric Obui, quarterback Geno Smith, cornerback Nico Thorpe, starting center Ethan Posich, fullback Nick Bellore, tight end Luke Wilson. I don't remember if Wilson has also retired or not. Wide receiver Philip Dorsett, who missed all of last year due to injury. Defensive end Brandon Jackson. Safety Demarius Randall. Defensive tackle DeMontre Moore. Defensive tackle Jonathan Bullard. Wide receiver David Moore. Number 1 corner Shaquille Griffin. Safety Delano Hill. Tackle Chad Wheeler is a restricted free agent. Now, Wheeler obviously had that really bad assault off-season incident that happened, I think it was like a month and a half ago, and Seattle obviously released him because of that, and I think his career is pretty much over. He has a bunch of stuff that he has to deal with as a result of that. Linebacker Shaquem Griffin, Shaquille's brother, is a restricted free agent. Cornerback Ryan Neal is an exclusive rights free agent. Defensive tackle Brian Moan is an exclusive rights free agent. Cornerback Lyndon Stevens is an exclusive rights free agent. Guard Jordan Simmons is a restricted free agent. Simmons filled in for Iupati when he was injured. Guard Kyle Fuller is an exclusive rights free agent. Starting running back Chris Carson. Running back Patrick Carr is an exclusive rights free agent. Cornerback Jason Stanley is an exclusive rights free agent. And starting defensive tackle Poona Ford is a restricted free agent. Before the release of Dunlop, the Seahawks had $4.575 million in cap space. After the release of Dunlop, that should give them around $18.6 million to work with. So the needs for the Seahawks, I'm going to say running back just because obviously given Penny's struggles and injuries. They'll definitely need a center. That's a big need. Defensive line, both defensive end and defensive tackle, especially with Dunlop gone. And definitely corner. We'll see if they are able to re-sign Shaq Griffin or not. So, and then for secondary needs, I mentioned this before. I could see them getting a future replacement down the line for Dwayne Brown. I could also see them maybe adding another guard. I could see them maybe adding a tight end for Will Dissley, to pair with him or to upgrade from Dissley. I've seen the Seahawks connected to Zach Ertz in a trade, so we'll see if that happens or if Ertz gets released. Maybe add another linebacker if they're not sold on Brooks being the number 2 or if they don't re-sign Wright. And I think that would basically be about it. So their potential cap casualties. Offensively, I don't really see any of their offensive players being cap casualties. I could see them cutting Reed. And then that's really about it. And like the thing with Seattle is that they have a lot of guys that are on expiring deals. Like Brown's in the final year of his deal, Penny's in the final year of his deal, Shell is, Lockett's in the final year of his deal, Dissley is, Dunlop was going to be in a contract year, Reed's in a contract year, Flowers is in a contract year, Adams and Diggs are both in contract years, so which means either Seattle has a lot of work ahead as far as extensions to do this offseason, or they will have a lot of cap flexibility next offseason. And of course, how Seattle's offseason gets graded depends on how they handle the Russell Wilson situation, whether he stays, if they mend that relationship, or if it winds up that he ends up leaving, and what kind of compensation they get, and who their quarterback would be if Wilson does move on. So that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for the next offseason preview video.